Hey guys, this is Jeremy from 78 Productions. I wanted to do a quick vlog for you guys about the idea of youth ministry and being on the front lines as leaders. So there's this idea that there's a lot of different youth workers. There's some that do admin work, some that only work at different times. Maybe youth workers are volunteers to drive people to and from or something like that. And then there's this concept of volunteers being on the front lines. And I love that idea, and I think that everybody that invests in teenagers really are youth workers on the front lines dealing with the stuff going on. But there's this concept that youth workers only need to know the basics about stuff, be it biblical interpretation, theology, or the latest youth ministry games, youth culture, all this different stuff, that they only need to have the basics for them to succeed. And I come from a perspective with Youth for Christ where they actually have a whole system designed that you have to go through before you are fully invested in the YFC program. And I would like to know what you guys have as far as being able to be leaders in the front lines with your youth ministry. And I bring this up because a lot of seminarians go on to be pastors, senior pastors, doctors, those type of things, but you don't really see that much with youth ministry. And I'd like to know what you guys' thoughts on that. Is that something that needs to be necessary? And one of the biggest reasons I ask that question is because we have so much stuff going on. Not only do we have to know the latest games, the latest Justin Bieber songs, what's going on in youth culture, not for the sake of entertainment, but just to know what's going on in their lives. I think that Jonathan McKee does a great job of understanding where to draw the line. You don't actually have to watch Glee to know what it's about. You don't actually have to read the Twilight books to understand what's going on there. But you need to understand the culture. You need to understand what the teenagers are investing in. And the culture with teenagers is always changing. Literally, one year we have the iPhone 4, and that's amazing. Next year we have Twilight, and this is going on, and that, and the latest Rihanna song that's highly inappropriate. What all of this stuff that's going on. So we need to have that. We need to also be able to teach a proper theology to teenagers that quite literally probably have not invested as much into their faith and scripture and prayer and community and service that an adult would have done. And as teenagers, there's a lot of different things going on. So if you're a middle school pastor, a middle school youth worker, then you have to also adjust to the concept that maybe they don't get concrete thinking. They're just coming into this idea of logical concepts. And so for them, a God that, or an abstract concepts. And so God that is always in time, always there, actually listens to us, is present in our lives, is not just this figment of our imaginations. And then high school students that finally get that, but then they're asking the deeper questions. How do I apply this to my life? What does God mean whenever He says this? Whenever God has a covenant with us, does that mean I can just do anything I want and it's okay? They're asking these really tough questions that a lot of times adults aren't necessarily doing. Maybe they're struggling it with themselves, but they're not necessarily asking the tough questions. So youth ministry has this amazing opportunity with theology, with service, to be able to ingrain into them the understanding that there's this grace that is available for anybody and everybody, no matter what you've done. And at the same time, to be able to establish those habits, those biblical habits of praying every single day, reading scripture and understanding how it applies to your life, to be there for others that are really struggling, and just to be able to live out your faith. And I feel like if we as youth workers only subscribe to the youth worker that has a degree in games, or just does not have the ample accreditations or wisdom, I'm not talking about knowledge that you can just read from a book and okay, everything's hunky-dory, but the wisdom that comes with being able to impress on these kids, I think we're really shortcoming with that. And I think that the senior pastors have a lot to deal with, but the people that they work with understand their faith to a degree. Whereas the teenagers, a lot of them are really thriving in this concept of trying to be able to understand their faith, that they really want to invest in what does this mean for me as a Christian and a teenager. And there's so many studies done that if we are able to impart on them now, as middle school especially, and then high school, if we can get them to understand this idea of salvation and grace, it sticks with them for life. And so with all these responsibilities, with all of this different kind of investments we need to have in research and concepts, why don't you have more of an education than maybe you do? And I'm not saying it's a wrong thing, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. This is kind of controversial. I'd love to hear what you have as far as what you've invested in your own self, as well as what you would like to do if you had the time. And that's a whole nother topic. What about the time to be able to invest in that? There's a coaching network with Terrence Crawford. Marco has a great coaching network as well. I know that Doug Fields is just recently coming out with some stuff as far as a certification. So there's a lot of opportunities besides getting a bachelor's degree in youth ministry, a seminarian degree. So what do you feel about all of this? Is it appropriate? Too much? Not necessary? Have to have it kind of a thing? And what does your church or your denomination think about this as well? Leave some comments below and we'll talk with you guys next week.